Hello, and welcome to Healing Tips from the Heart, Intuition with Helpers, Healers, and Guides. I am your host, Dr. Lori Hops, licensed psychologist, writer, and artist. I've explored mind, body, and spirit related to intuition, or your personal guidance system, since early childhood. Meet my guests who have learned from their personal and professional lives to explore vast realms of knowing, synchronicities, and overcoming challenges. Their stories may inspire you with tools to enhance your daily living and relationships. Hello, everyone, and welcome my special guest for today, Lisa Forbes. Lisa is the founder and executive director of a nonprofit organization called Operation I Can Take It From Here. Her nonprofit has a mission to heal 100 million people using clinical emotional freedom technique, or EFT. She has over 20 years experience using clinical EFT, healing her own adverse childhood experiences, complex trauma, and PTSD. She's also a professional speaker and the author of the book called I Can Take It From Here, a memoir of trauma, prison, and self-empowerment. Lisa is dedicated to supporting the emotional well-being of underserved populations, with an emphasis on people who have been impacted by the criminal justice system, who she refers to as restored citizens, along with their families. Her work has been recognized by the Colorado Psychiatric Society and the Society for Human Resource Management, among others. And she hopes to align her mission with others who are seeking entry-level roles, who have been restored citizens. And I am so happy to have you here today, Lisa.
Thank you. I'm so pleased to be here. Very nice to talk with you again.
Yeah, so I wanted the audience to know that I met you through a mutual colleague of ours,
Mhm.
and I haven't yet had the pleasure to meet you in person, but I hope to one day.
So
And
do
I
I.
was so impressed with your story, with who you are. And I just am so excited to share with the audience today. So is there anything you'd like the audience to know, maybe that they don't know so far about you?
Well, I can give them the cliff notes so that they have some idea as we go into it of where I'm coming from.
Yes.
So I grew up in the housing projects on the south side of Chicago. I was the youngest of six children, and I'm sure that many of our listeners will understand that in a dysfunctional home, everything rolls downhill. So I had a lot of adverse childhood experiences, a lot of trauma, various types of abuse. And by the time before I was even in my teens, I had PTSD. But reading was my refuge. And so I did really well in school, and I graduated from high school when I was 15. However, my mother was in a religion that believed that the end of the world was going to happen at any moment. And she didn't believe in what they called worldly knowledge. So she didn't send me to college. She got me a worker's permit when I was 15 years old, and I got a full-time job as a secretary in downtown Chicago. Within a year, I was pregnant by a man I met on that job. So, pregnant at 16, my daughter was born shortly after I turned 17. And then 2 years later, in the midst of what I can only call a complete mental and emotional breakdown, I stabbed my daughter's father, and I was charged with premeditated murder and convicted. So I went to prison when I was 19, and I was 33 when I came home. 9 months after I got home, I got married, and my husband was my father's age and had my mother's personality. So I told you that I was the youngest of six children. So he also had five children who were older than me. And when I made that connection, I realized that I had recreated my childhood almost down to the last detail. That's what led me to search for healing. I knew that wasn't a coincidence. So those are the cliff notes of how I came to be searching for EFT or some kind of emotional healing. And like you mentioned, people can read the full story in the book. I can take it from here, but it it's a hard read. But it's a read that I tell my story because I want people to understand that when I talk about trauma, I'm not speaking from theory. I'm talking about things I have really experienced. And so when I say that tapping has really helped me with this, it has helped me on a deep level with deep trauma.
Understood. Oh my goodness, Lisa, I know you've
Mhm.
told your story so many times
Mhm.
and that you've become an expert storyteller with it. But I would love to take just a moment for our listeners who haven't heard your story before, because what you just shared and what we're about to talk about is so
Mhm.
important. But I want to make sure that people are okay right
Yes.
now
Yes.
because it's kind of like shocking if you're not
Mhm.
prepared for the story that you just shared. And
Mhm.
so, would you be willing to lead us in, or I can, in a regulating or grounding or centering technique?
I'll follow your lead.
Okay, so for right now, if anyone's listening and they're feeling rattled or upset or ungrounded or confused or disturbed, find a quiet, safe place. So if you're driving,
Yeah.
turn this off or pull over. And if you're able to, just take a couple of deep breaths, just in through the nose and out through the mouth. And just come home to yourself for a moment. Because when we go into shock, we sometimes don't even know that we've gone into shock.
Mhm.
So just take a breath. And if you can, straighten your posture, feel your feet rooted, your heels. You might want to move your toes and heels around a little bit. Stomp your feet gently, tap them, maybe wring out your hands. And just if you feel comfortable, you can place your hands on your heart or on your belly, wherever you feel comfortable. And just notice three things around you that help you anchor into the present moment focus. They might be things that you see, colors, shapes, sizes, objects, maybe things that you're hearing or feeling. You might notice your breath rising and falling, or the temperature of your fingers.
Mhm.
And if you're feeling ready, then come on back and join us for more. And I promise it's going to be a wonderful talk. And if you're not, it's okay. Take a break and maybe come back to this later or move on. So thank you so much, Lisa, for helping me co-regulate with you.
Mhm.
So,
Yes.
and thank you for that, for your
Mhm.
graciousness.
My pleasure. So, it is a hard story, but it is an important story to tell, not just because it's mine, but because, as you mentioned in the opening, there are 100 million people in the United States who have some type of criminal conviction. There are 19 million Americans who have a felony conviction. And so I like to remind people that this is a population that is the size of a nation. If all people who I call restored citizens formed a country, it would be the 15th largest country in the world. And so we know that this population has high levels of adverse childhood experiences, high levels of PTSD, levels of trauma. And would we not, if it was a foreign country, be working to assist people who were coming out of situations that had the equivalent of war level trauma? And would we not be doing everything we could to assist them and to rebuild them and to help them? And yet here we have in the United States a nation within a nation. is what I call restored citizens, a nation within a nation. And yet we turn them out after many times decades of incarceration, give them a bus ticket and say, go fend for yourself, and then wonder why we have 70 to 80% recidivism rate.
Which is the
This is
return of coming back again into the penal system, correct?
exactly.
Yes.
And almost the recidivism rate is so high that people don't realize that many times it's the same people coming in and out, in and out, in and out all the time. And that, Lori, is one thing I did want to explain the term restored citizens,
Yes.
because many people are familiar with the term returning citizens. But in my 14 years of incarceration, what I saw was people returning to the streets, returning to prison, returning to the streets, returning to prison. And so I began to dislike the term returning citizens because to me it was a wheel. I wanted people to be restored. And so I read when I was in prison, like many people do, I read the Bible. And there's a scripture in the Bible that says God will restore to you the years that the locust and the cankerworm and the caterpillar had devoured. And when I saw that, I said, yeah, that's what I want. I want to be restored to my original blueprint. I want to be restored to what I could have been. When I was 3 years old, I could read at a third grade level. The potential was endless, and yet, when I was 4 years old, I got hit by a car, and I had head trauma, but it was undiagnosed and untreated. And so I think between that and then all of the other things that happened, it became a life that was completely derailed. And it doesn't diminish the impact of what a person did if they committed a crime, to say that we need to understand the context in which crime occurs. If a plane falls out of the sky, there's an intense investigation. Many times that investigation says pilot error, but the investigation still occurs. But when a person's whole life burns and crashes in front of their eyes, why do we just flick them aside and say, oh, well, they're just horrible people? No, no 5-year-old in school, no 8-year-old in school, when asked, what do you want to be when you grow up, says, ooh, I want to be a murderer. Right. Oh, I want to go to prison, right? Said no kid ever.
Yeah.
We need to realize that this represents 100 million people whose lives have been derailed by something. And I believe that something is trauma. And we need to understand that because it is trauma, in my opinion, then people like you and I and our listeners, we have the ability to intervene and turn things around.
Beautiful. True. Yes. You know, Lisa, you have been through so much that is beyond what people expect out of life
Hmm.
on so many levels. And I'm sure that you're just telling us the tip of the iceberg. And it
Hmm.
would be completely understandable if you spent the rest of your life restoring yourself, and that
Hmm.
alone would be enough. And yet you haven't stopped there. And your dreams are bigger than that and
Hmm.
beyond that. And so I applaud you for whatever magic and divinity or whatever it is that
Hmm.
is in you that you connect to really keep going and going beyond. And I'd love to hear more about what you have found that you're so eager to share because you know that the need is so profound.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Well, there are a couple of stories that I like to share with people, things that kind of shaped my approach to this. And actually, they're both related to Michelangelo.
Oh,
So the story goes that when asked about his vision of the sculpture of David, Michelangelo said, the sculpture is already complete within the marble block. I just have to chisel away the superfluous material. And reportedly, he said the same thing about another sculpture. When asked about the angel, he said, I saw an angel in the marble and I just carved until I set him free. That's my approach to restored citizens. I look at restored citizens and I feel that, like me, these are not people who are hopelessly, helplessly broken and need to be put back together. I see them as I was, encased in this marble block of trauma, needing something to come and chisel away and set them free. And that is how I approach it because I know what I wanted for myself. Uh, what I wanted was for people to see who I was, not just what I had done, and to try to understand why that happened, and to not just essentially throw away who it was possible for me to be on the basis of the worst moment of my life. And again, not minimizing the impact of crime, but with 100 million people in this situation on some level, many of them having committed crimes of violence of some type, we are not in a position to say these people do not matter. These people have nothing to contribute. These are mothers. These are fathers. These are wives, husbands. They have lives beyond themselves, and healing them individually is healing their families, and then their communities, and then their cities, and then their states. And this is how we get to the world. Sometimes people like to start with healing the world, but I think healing the world starts with healing our hearts. And so that is where I wanted to start with people. I wanted to say, you know, you can change who you are by healing your emotions. You will never change what you did, but you can change who you are going forward. And that's what we need to focus on. And that's all I have done. All I have really done, Lori, is to want for people what I wanted for myself. And I realized that the way I found EFT
Mhm.
is a way that a lot of people would not have been able to, because this is a population that reads primarily at a sixth grade level or below. But I found EFT through researching, through studying, and so this is a way that they would not be able to find it. Having found it that way, it became my mission to then take it to them, and to hopefully use my story as a way to shorten their path, because it took me a long time to find this. But if I can identify the people who would need it most and then shorten their path, that would make what I have endured worth it.
Beautiful. Thank you for that. Yeah. If you found this 20 years ago,
Yes,
then it was really just beginning. And that was the internet was around, but not as much
exactly. Yeah,
accessible as it is today.
correct.
Right.
Yeah,
And we have so many other resources now, videos and groups and, so many things. So good for you for finding it.
yeah.
You were one of the pioneers.
Well, what I did was I went online and I just started searching things like healing childhood trauma or, childhood loops. I didn't even really know what I was looking for, but I
Hmm.
came across a video by Brad Yates.
Uh-huh.
And I just started following along with him. And when I realized that, okay, I'm just sitting in front of a screen listening to a video. And he had this thing he called a big book of scripts. And I was following along on the scripts. And I was experiencing so much relief over the months that I was doing that, that I began to wonder, wow, what could really happen if someone was actually trained in this? If I was actually sitting across a person? It just became my mission to
Yeah.
take these results to people who I knew were enduring the same type of suffering that I was.
Yes. And now we've seen through the research studies, which there have been several hundred, been
Mhm.
peer-reviewed journals, some,
Exactly.
right. And we've seen that on the ground in communities with single incidents,
Mhm.
like the shootings, unfortunate shootings that have happened at schools, but
Mhm.
also for whole communities, taking, tapping into the jails,
Mhm.
into war-torn areas, during conflict and after, just on and on and on. And so,
Mhm.
the reality of the effectiveness is really, really showing up and becoming more widespread. And the media, just this week, I saw three three articles in the mainstream media talking about
Mhm.
the effectiveness of EFT.
Yeah.
So we're making strides. But
You know, so there are studies that show that in some inner cities, for instance, that the incidences of PTSD are higher than those of combat veterans returning from Iraq and Afghanistan. And that was one of the biggest thing that was drawing me to this work in the way that I do it is because I know that a lot of people go to war-torn areas, but
mhm,
people don't look at Chicago as a war-torn area. You know, it's like to me the war-torn area is the neighborhood I grew up. And also there are lots of people taking EFT, increasingly so into jails and prisons.
yeah,
But there's to me the the impact that I wanted to make was on the people who had been released.
yeah. It's a
Because
different focus. Yeah.
yeah, and so that is the focus of what we do in the nonprofit. We want to go into the communities after and find those people who have been released and work with them. And it's our program is a replication of the Veteran Stress Project is what it's intended to be where
Okay.
they worked with veterans over 12 to 15 hours of tapping and then followed them and showed that even 2 years later they still did not meet the clinical criteria for PTSD. So when I saw that work and there was a documentary done about it, I contacted Eric, who had done the documentary, Eric Curie, and I asked him if he'd be willing to reproduce it, but using restored citizens as the demographic. And we were all ready to go, and he was very happy to do it. Then, of course, he suddenly passed. And so it was that was a great loss on many levels to me personally and to the world. But that was the objective was to show that many of these veterans their PTSD levels was equal to that of people who were on the streets. So we if we know that it worked with the veteran population, let's just replicate it to a different demographic. So what we do is not recreating the wheel. We know that it works. We're
Yeah.
just taking it to a different population.
Yeah. Beautiful. Yes. And so for those who don't know, we've been talking for a while about this
Mhm.
wonderful EFT. We haven't actually defined it yet. It's in many of my other podcasts and gone into that, and I'll have stuff in the program notes. But would you like me, or would you like to just do it like a nutshell definition of what we're talking about?
I'll let you do it.
Okay,
Yeah.
so
Mhm.
this is called emotional freedom technique. It was created in the 1970s, so it's been around for a while. And it's a combination of uh, thinking therapy, like cognitive behavioral, and using the energy systems of the body, which sounds kind of esoteric and strange, but it's based in Chinese medicine with the meridians or the energy channels that run through when you use needles like acupuncture. This uses acupressure or tapping. So there's no needles, it's self-applied, and there are specific parts of the head, the torso, and possibly the hands. It depends which version you're using, that you're telling the body to relax, to be in a state of calm while you're thinking about or feeling generally an upsetting incident. And it's kind of remarkable. You're basically saying stop and go at the same time, and your body relaxes. It kind of
Mhm.
gets confused. Like instead of like, oh, this thing that always upsets me when I think about it, and then I have this automatic response of what I do, and I get breathing and tight, my breath gets tight and I get worried or I get angry or I get afraid. But you're tapping on these parts of the body and you're telling your body, like, it's almost like a self-massage kind of.
Mhm.
Relax, you're safe, you're fine. And then you're bringing in those thoughts and feelings at the same time, and there's a confusion in the mind, and it creates, actually, we're finding a new memory. You don't have to combine the trauma memory with the body trauma response. You can separate those things and you can say, even though I'm still remembering it as it happened and I'm not being hypnotized, no memories are being erased, but I'm telling my body right now, I'm fine, I'm safe, and it's good. And then you have a distance, a disconnect from that traumatic automatic response that your body goes through when it's trying to save your life, to fight, to flee,
Mhm.
to hide, to collapse. Those things get quieted way down to the point of going away. And it looks crazy that it works. But when you try it on something small, don't try it on something big, especially if you're working alone, something small, something that's mildly irritating or a little bit upsetting, you'll start to see that it does work. So, is there something you want to add to that summary?
Well, and I just wanted to say that the a lot of times people do say, "Oh, that looks strange," "Oh, that, I don't see how that would work." But really, what I would advise people is to try it because you will be surprised at how, first of all, it's based on the Chinese acupuncture system, and so it's not something that is some newfangled, unheard of thing. These are things that are based on. Uh, Systems that we know have worked for thousands of years. And so not only is it well established in other cultures, but even now we have, as you referred to earlier, hundreds of peer-reviewed studies with thousands of participants demonstrating that it works and it works with no adverse effects. So it has been a wonderful life-saving thing for me. And the thing is, Lori, that when I found EFT, if I had to have money or health insurance or transportation to go get a prescription or go get some money to do something, to get some help, I never would have gotten it. What I value about EFT is that it is easily taught. It is easily learned. Once learned, it is self-administered. And it really empowers the person to have emotional freedom at their fingertips. So you don't need to go talk to your therapist in a moment. You have the ability to tap and regulate yourself in a moment. And sometimes that moment can be the difference between whether you do something or not that will devastate your life or someone else's. So it's really important to be able to have a tool that you can have at your fingertips as needed.
Beautiful. Thank you for that. Yeah. So you're saying that even if you had had access
Mhm.
to reaching out to others, you would not have done so, which is a common response to
Mhm.
trauma because we've learned in trauma state that the world's not safe and neither are other people. So
Exactly.
why
Right.
would you risk yourself in your
Exactly.
moment of
Right.
need to reach out because the trust has already been broken? But if
Right.
you can, in the privacy of your own space, do these things that are simple and you can maybe watch a video and follow along with it,
Mhm.
even without words, and just bring yourself back, then you can start to breathe, you can think better, you can be creative, you can get out of your own way, and you can be in the present moment, which we know when you're experiencing trauma, you are not fully present. You are living
Exactly.
in two different realities in the past, in the
Right.
worry, in the future, and maybe three,
Exactly.
and partly in
Right.
the present.
Right. So, and the other thing that I appreciated about it is that it works it on people of various ages. When we're talking about crime, something that the media has conditioned us to think of crime as something that happens to the other, to those people, to certain categories of people. But there are studies that show that 70% of children in the juvenile justice system meet the criteria for a mental health disorder. 30% of them have PTSD. 60% of women in prison have PTSD. So these are huge populations of people that if we could just put this into their hands, it could make a difference in the world that we can't even comprehend right now. And that's really what drives me. The fact that, as I said, I'm on a mission to reach 100 million people, and I don't see it as impossible because each if we even if we just looked at the statistics, there's 70 to 100 million restored citizens in America, but each one of them is connected to at least one person. They have a significant other, they have children, they have parents, and so if we reach them but then they reach their families, Laura, we could be talking about 1 billion people we could reach. It's that huge of a vision, and also that personal of a vision. Because when I'm talking to a restored citizen, I'm talking to them, and behind them are our family and friends and supporters all of them are impacted and made better when this person that I'm talking to is made better. So it's a very personal mission for me. And I realize that with each one of them that I'm personally talking to, I'm also helping two or three other people. It's just really become a work of love for me.
I
And
love
that's
it.
what drives me to do it.
I love it. I love it. And I can see that it feeds you. And,
Yes.
and it's this beautiful like recursive loop that keeps feeding you. You give and you receive, and
Yes.
then the receiver gives to you, and then you give back again or to someone else, and it spreads. So, do you see this as like a that you would have people who are trained in community to go physically into neighborhoods and find people, maybe through churches or through workplaces or
Hmm.
through community centers or
Hmm.
through I don't know. I'm just imagining like where are the people and how do you get the message out?
So what we want to do is we have 17 EFT practitioners. So many of them are also licensed mental health practitioners working with Operation I Could Take It From Here right now, which is the nonprofit. What my ultimate vision is not only to work individually or with groups with healing restored citizens, but also to train people who want to become practitioners. So we want to do train the trainer programs and do what I call create the cadre to send these people out into the community, and I mean literally to the point of knocking on doors. But what we really want to start with is we want to reach out to second chance employers but there are many employers who already employ restored citizens, and they know that these are good workers because many of them are, they don't want to do anything to lose their job. And it's been shown statistically that these people tend to be very loyal, very hard workers, and also many of them have well beyond entry level skills. They are not all entry level people. I always say that just because a person has been incarcerated, we shouldn't assume that they need to be in the mailroom when they have the capacity to be in the boardroom.
Mhm.
We should be putting them into the workplace at the level at which they are actually qualified. But what we want to do is reach out, beginning with second chance employers, to see if they will incorporate EFT programs into some of their wellness programs, if they will encourage their employees who are second chance employees to join be one of the participants in our program. We only have it's a 5-day program, and then we just do a short 6-month follow-up just to get the data and ensure that we are actually replicating the results that we know that many other studies have gotten. We want to make sure that these restored citizens get the same results and same benefits from the program that the veterans did. That's our goal in following up, to make sure that our quality is high and our results are replicated. And so, yes, corporate support will be very important to us, as well as just general community support. This is a community statistically that may have some difficulty with being followed up. So
Yeah.
we want to make sure that we establish trust, that we have restored citizens working with
Mm.
restored citizens who are becoming trained. And so this is where my role comes in, to build that trust and build that cadre, and then gather other people to work with us and support us, and that's where other people can help us as well.
Beautiful. I love how you've thought
Mhm.
through this. I can
Mhm.
see the vision clearly. And yeah, and I see it makes so much sense to work with a population that's already engaged. Because as you said for yourself, you wouldn't have reached out. And so that isolation, so
Mm-mm.
you is a real thing and a big barrier. And so here's people who have reached out and are
Exactly.
engaged, and there's this infrastructure for it already.
Exactly.
So that's
Yeah.
very, very smart. And then, I mean, I can foresee that there would be follow-up, not just for study, but for continuing to use the practices and
Yeah.
to have maybe peer-led or peer support groups or whatever. But,
Yes.
building
I,
onto your dream.
yes. Well, yes. I mean, our vision, I always say that this is people, talk about reentry programs and criminal justice programs. Uh, Operation I Could Take It From Here is not a reentry program. It's a movement. We're
Yes,
it's a movement.
yes,
We want to change fundamentally how people are being impacted by the past and free them from that chain so that they can be all that they were actually capable of being before trauma derailed their lives.
yes. Yeah, I love how you say, like, going back to the blueprint,
Hmm.
that we all have this like seed um, completeness,
Hmm.
like a seed that was created before we came, maybe, and that it still exists and that you
It
can
does.
connect to it. Yes, you can connect to
Exactly.
it. It can form you and help. Yeah, so much. And I see that. I mean, I see your light. It's
Oh, thank you. Yeah. So yes, I am. This is work that I am very passionate about. It is very personal to me,
yeah,
but it also is a vision. And even that, I tell people that the title of my book, I Could Take It From Here. It's a personal statement, but it's also my vision for other people.
mhm,
I want 100 million restored citizens to get to the point where they've gotten the help and the support that they can get from people like you, people from corporate, people from, all around the world, all kinds of supporters, and finally get to the point where they can turn around and say, "Thank you for your help. I can take it from here." That's my goal. That's the title of my book is a statement. It's my identity, and it's an identity I want other people to take on. I don't want you to be permanently the reentry client.
right.
I want you to be free. And I know that for me, the foundation of that has been emotional freedom. And so that is where I want to start. I want to start with what will allow you to be free enough to make different decisions. Once you can make different decisions, your whole life will change. But if you're
Yeah,
stuck in that loop where you can only make the decisions that trauma is allowing you to make, nothing will ever change. So
yes.
we have to free the trauma if we really want to address some of these issues.
Beautiful. And what a better time than now for that.
No better time.
Yeah. Yeah.
And my belief is that, in here in Colorado is the first time I was ever saw aspen trees.
Oh,
And so I was riding with a friend through an aspen grove, and I really fell in love with that tree. I thought it was beautiful, and I started doing research on it, and I learned that there is this aspen grove in Utah called Pondo, and I think it is like 47,000 aspen trees or something. But what I learned is that scientists actually say not really. It just appears that way. It's one tree. They
yes.
call it a forest of one because it has the same root system feeding all 47,000 trees. When I saw that, I said, wait a minute, that's a parallel for what's happening in our society because we look at domestic violence and juvenile crime and school shootings and all these different things, anything you can think of, we look at it as a completely separate entity that needs to be addressed differently. But what I see it is different manifestations of one root. All of that to me is being fed by a root of unhealed trauma. And just like one root system is feeding those 47,000 trees, one root system is feeding homelessness and crime and schools problems. That one root system is feeding so many of our problems. If we don't address the root system of trauma, we'll just be chopping at leaves and branches without ever addressing the root. And so my goal is to change the world by addressing the root. And if it, since I believe if from my own life, the only thing that has made change possible for me was healing trauma, I believe that will make a tremendous difference for so many people. And so it is important for me always to address the root of things. Whenever I see a problem, I always, or any situation, I always ask what's causing it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And if I can convince myself, and I am convinced that what is at the root of this issue is trauma, and if we want to address that issue, we have to heal trauma. That is where all of my work will be focused.
It's beautiful. Yeah, I love that image. And I've been thinking about the oneness from the beginning when you started talking. And so I'm so glad that you gave that lovely image of the aspen trees. They are
Mhm.
quite spectacular. And when the wind blows through the leaves, the sound and the feeling, it's so alive and it's
Yeah.
really incredible. And so yeah, when you fertilize the soil, you make the earth healthy and then the roots can grow. Because even damaged trees, I'm sure you've seen this before, where a tree has been chopped down and it's just the stump, but the roots are
Hmm.
there, and then it starts to
Hmm.
regrow
Right.
and it sends
Right.
up shoots, and it's never as well, it's never it takes time for it to become vital again. Let me put it that
Hmm.
way, because you're
Yeah.
comparing a pattern of growth now, the new growth to the old growth, so it looks like it's not as vital, but the impetus for life
Hmm.
continues.
Hmm.
This has been so inspiring that it's hard to think of mundane things right now, which I'm sure they will come rushing back to me. But you have such a beautiful way of combining the perspective from on high and the specific,
Hmm.
and you're able to do
Thank you.
both. Yeah, to
Yeah.
capture both, which is not easy to do, to
Hmm.
hold both at the same time, and there is incredible power in that. And I mean, I'm convinced that this is a thing already.
Yes.
Like you're talking
Yes.
about it in the future, but like it's already here.
Yeah.
So I'm wondering if you have anything that you'd like to share as we come to the end of our time together today.
Well, what I would like for people to know is that even if they are not EFT practitioners, they can still support our organization because we need admin, we need social media, we need marketing. Well, there are all kinds of roles that people can fill. So I would encourage them to go to our website. My uh, speaking website is lisaforbesspeaks.com. The nonprofit is icantakeitfromhere.org. I wouldn't want people to think that if just, well, I'm not an EFT practitioner. If this message speaks to you, if you yourself are a formerly incarcerated person, or someone you love is, or someone in your family is, this message is for you, and this organization is for you. So we welcome your input. We welcome your the skills that you can bring to us. Of course, anyone can fund us. If you know corporate sponsors or anyone, or you yourself are a corporation and are looking for someone to sponsor, please consider sponsoring our organization to change these lives. We will use the money well, and so yeah, you don't need to be this isn't an organization just for EFT practitioners. It's a movement to change the world. So you can join us whoever you are.
I love it. Thank you. Thank you for saying yes. And
Thank you, Lori. Appreciate talking to you and your support. I really feel the support that you have I've been so gratified in talking to people who really understand how important this is and are able to buy into the mission on whatever level they can. I'm really inspired to see what we can do with this.
delightful.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Bye-bye, everyone. Thank you for joining us for today's podcast. If you want to learn more, you can visit my website for podcast and resources at hopshealingtips.com. You can also like, share, and subscribe to this channel. This podcast is for information and entertainment purposes only and is not providing healthcare advice. Please seek guidance from your professional healthcare team should you need assistance.